Hi everybody, this is Spring, the fiber enthusiast. Today we're going to discuss how to use the magic circle when knitting in the round a pair of socks. Today we are going to start with the cast on and the cuff, the ribbing. And I will show you how to separate your stitches and knit in the round using the magic circle or the magic loop. For today's tutorial, we are using Patton's Croy Sock. It's a 4-ply, and I am not sponsored or affiliated with this company. I purchased it with my own money on a Hobby Lobby sale. This is 150-gram ball or 1.75 ounce. The colorway is turquoise jacquard, and sock weight is a number 1. Recommended needle size is a number 3. I, however, do not have a 3. So I will be using a 2.5, which is fine because that's what I normally use to make my socks. And this is the type of yarn I use on these needles. So I'll be okay. So the first thing we're going to do is get us some yarn barf out from the center here and cast on 56 stitches. Now the stitches depend on your ankle size, your foot size. I found that 56 inches fits my 8.5 US size foot. So I will long tail cast on 56 stitches onto one needle, and I will be back. Okay, so I'm coming up to the last 6 stitches of my 56. Okay, now how I join in the round is not how everybody joins in the round. How I do it is I cast on 1 extra stitch. And I'll show you in just a second what we do with that stitch. Okay. The next thing you're going to want to do is divide your stitches evenly. So in my case, minus that extra stitch, I would be separating out. So I'll move it down onto the cord. I will be separating it out 28 stitches. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, and 28. And what you do is you grab hold of that cord and fold it in half right at your 28th stitch. And pull that cord just like that. So now you have half of your stitches on one side and half of your stitches on the other side. Let me get both needles up here. Gonna put these stitches out on the needles so you can see what we're doing. And then what you want to do once you get them up here is make sure that all your stitches are exactly the same. This whole ridge needs to be on the bottom of both needles. Okay? So now I'm going to show you how I get rid of that extra stitch. What you do is your working needle always comes from the back side. The needle that's holding the work that you are working is on the front side. So with all your stitches the same direction, you can now pull that back needle out enough to fold it around and use it to work. But keep a loop on that side. Then what I do is I slip that stitch onto this needle. And I literally pull it all the way through. Then when I get to that side, I will work them 2 stitches together and make both of them stitches one. But right now, I'm connected to this side. Now, you want to make sure that your work stays over the top of your working needle. Otherwise, you'll end up with a mess. Let me get all my yarn straightened out here. I'm going to put my long tail cast on underneath and my work on top. Okay, now to start, you're going to knit exactly like you would normally knit. Now, if you're needing to know how to do a long tail cast on, or the knit stitch, or the purl stitch, you can reference back to my previous knitting tutorial videos on stitches and cast on. So that was our first knit stitch. Now I want to purl the next stitch, knit the next, and what I'm doing is a 1-by-1 ribbing, which means knit 1, purl 1. And you're going to do this to the end of this row. I personally like a 1-by-1 ribbing. I don't care to make them, but I do like them when I'm wearing them because they do hold up a little bit better and have more stretch. Just my opinion. Almost done with this row. A few more stitches. Okay. So we ended on a purl. That means our first stitch on the next side will be a knit. Let me zoom back out so that way you can see what I'm doing with the needles. Keeping my yarn on top of my work, I'm going to flip this over. Keep my work from sliding off. Make sure all my stitches are still going the same way. And I'm going to slide this needle down to the stitches. That way they're ready to work. The stitches all straightened out and aligned. Make sure that I am all the same direction. Make sure my yarn is going to stay over the top of my work. And then I will pull that back needle out just enough to give me a loop on both sides. Then I will pick up my work and we start with a knit stitch because we ended on a purl on the other side. So when you do this first stitch, each time you switch needles and make a new loop, you need to make sure that this stitch is pulled nice and snug. Otherwise, you will have a long bar across between the two. So you want to make sure that's nice and snug, and then you continue the pattern to the last two stitches. Knit one, purl one. I'm going to finish these stitches until the last two, and then I'll return. Okay, I've come to the last two stitches. Now here's what I do with that extra stitch. I'm going to slip this one over. I'm going to slip that extra one over, which is actually my very first stitch. Slip it over. Then what I do, move them out of the way. What I do is take the first stitch I slipped and transfer it over the top of the last stitch that I slipped. Remove my needle and place this stitch back onto my left needle. Now, this was a knit stitch, so that one will be a purl stitch. So I will go ahead and work that last stitch as a purl. Then I will turn my work pull this front needle to the stitches. And again, I want to make sure that all my stitches are going the right way, all lined up before I start the next round. Get that needle into the stitches. Make sure my working yarn is on top. And now I'm set up and ready to pull this back needle out of these stitches and create our next loop. So how I do that is just put my finger on that first stitch and gently hold and pull that needle out to give myself another loop. Now I can work these stitches the rest of the way up on the needle, and I'm ready to go again. That last stitch was a purl, which was exactly what I needed to start the first stitch on this side, because it is a knit stitch. Let's see if I can get you to see. See that bump on the second stitch? That's a purl. There's no bump on that first stitch. That's because it's a knit stitch. Okay. So again, we want to make sure that we get this tight and we don't have all this slack in the middle. So when we knit that stitch, we need to pull these two together, the cord and the needle together. Now we can pull it off. And we will purl the next stitch. And knit. And purl. And knit. And purl. Knit. And purl. Knit. And purl. I'm going to finish this row off camera since I can't seem to stay in camera. I'm going to finish this row off camera and I'll be right back. Okay, so I've made it back around, and I failed to mention to put a stitch marker at the beginning of your work. So where your tail is the beginning. I just used an easy slip on and off stitch marker. You can use whatever kind of your preference as long as you can take it off. So you're going to complete about a good 2 inches of this 1x1 ribbing, working in the round. Just turning your work, keeping your working yarn on top of your work. Slide your cord so your needles match. Make sure that all your stitches are exactly the same, facing the same direction. And then pull the back one out just enough so you have working room and that you still have a loop on the other side. And then begin your stitches. Remembering to tighten the first stitch in between your needle and your cable. Okay, I'm going to work my 2 inches and I'll be right back. Okay, so I have finished my 2 inches of ribbing for the cuff. Or if you're using centimeters, it would be 5 centimeters. And I forgot to mention at the beginning that this is a cuff down pattern that I'm doing. So we're going to move on and work on the leg part of the sock. Continuing to use the magic loop, magic circle. We're going to move on down the leg. So this is how tall I want my cuff. Now, as far as the leg, you want to measure how much you want for your leg, what you like. Some like short socks, so there'll only be a small part that goes down the leg. Some like tall socks that go mid-calf, so you'll have a lot more that you'll need to do for the leg before we start the heel and gusset. So that part of this pattern is entirely up to you. I'm going to show you a simple 1-row repeat pattern that I'm going to do for these socks, being that the yarn is striped. I can't do too much pattern and have it look nice without taking away from the stripes and the stripes taking away from the pattern. So I'm just going to do a knit 3, purl 1 all the way around for the length of the leg that I want. And I'll show you how that's done. Again, we're going to continue in the same fashion. We're going to pull the back needle out and work on this front needle. So we are going to knit 3, purl 1, knit 3, purl 1, knit 3, purl 1. And we're going to continue to do that all the way to the end. Okay, I just finished the last stitch of that side. Pull my needles out together, making sure that my working yarn is on top. And slide that other needle out and continue the pattern on this side. My last stitch was a purl, so we are going to knit this first stitch, ensuring that we take care of the slack and make it good and tight right here on that first stitch. And knit the next 2 and purl the next 1. Okay, knit 3, purl 1, 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 knit 3, and your last stitch should be a purl. Okay, gonna turn our work over. Make sure our yarn stays on top of our work. And pull that back needle out to be able to work on the front. So we are going to continue that pattern for the length of the leg, whatever it might be for you. I will probably do just another 2 to 3 inches before I start my heel. But I'm going to leave you with knit 3, purl 1, knit 3, purl 1, all the way around using your magic loop. And I will meet you when we're done with the leg. Okay, I've completed another couple of inches, and I'm gonna call that good for my sock, cuff, and leg section. I'm at 4 inches. Of course, you can keep on going and make it as tall up on the leg as you would like. For this pattern, I am not counting rows or rounds. I'm just measuring. Next video, I will start the heel and the foot and the toe. So for now, we have the cuff and the leg, and the cuff was completed with a 1x1 ribbing, and the leg was done in a 3-1, 3 knit, 1 purl, 3 knit, 1 purl, 3 knit, 1 purl, until you've reached the desired length that you want for the leg part of your sock. And that's what the pattern will look like when it's stretched out a little bit. Okay, so I will see you in the next sock knitting tutorial on the magic loop circular knitting needles. Okay guys, thank you for watching, and if this video has been of any help, please like and let me know in the comments box. Until the next video, be blessed and be a blessing. Bye.